Okay, welcome everyone. Let's get started. We're so excited to have so many of you here to hear what our youth have to say. We are Nest, and hopefully I can get this to advance. We have been a city task force since 2019. Our mission is to assist, advise, and educate the city, the residents, local businesses on how to have a more sustainable, carbon-free, and resilient future for Naperville. If you would like to learn more about us, we welcome you to join one of our committees. We have monthly community meetings. We do outings. We often are speaking at City Council. We will be tomorrow. So please get in touch with us. And we wanted to highlight a few upcoming Nest events. On August 1st, we will be working with many of these same students in a partnership with First Congregational Church, Accelerate Climate Solutions, and Nest, called Remake the Future. I think the students are going to talk a little more about that. We have a tour of Naperville's Springbrook Water Reclamation Center on August 20th. It's one of the biggest capital projects going on right now in our history. And then in September, you will actually see Kathy Clarkin from ACS, along with Aaron Stash, talking about electrification. So if you are interested in electrifying your home and getting away from gas and carbon, please join us. And with that, I am going to pass it along to the students because I know they have a lot to share with you tonight.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Youth Voices, Busting Climate Myths in the Digital Age. We're so excited to have so many people here tonight to learn from the youth and to learn all about different climate myths and the reality behind them. So this event is being put on by some of the students at Accelerate Climate Solutions, which, in case you didn't know, is a local sustainability nonprofit based in Naperville, dedicated to raising the next generation of youth climate leaders. So through Accelerate Climate Solutions, they have a youth program called BLAST, which stands for Building Leadership Around Sustainable Transformation. Through that program, we have a BLAST competition, which is where students spend some time developing sustainable solutions throughout the school year, and they put together proposals and pitches, which they then present to a panel of judges and compete for funding in order to implement those solutions. So a lot of students who get involved in the BLAST competition then come to our BLAST Summer Internship Program, which is what's putting on this event here for you guys today. So the BLAST Summer Internship this year has 75 interns that are all high school, college age, and a few middle school age that work together in different teams. This year we have 9 teams that are all doing different projects in order to create sustainable solutions for the community, or to learn more, whether that be through collecting water and data samples or advocating for a school carbon action plan. So there's a lot of variety and a lot of voices that are really important to hear from, and a lot of different things going on through Accelerate Climate Solutions this summer, and we encourage all of you to stick around and learn more after. Another way that you can support student voices is by coming to Remake the Future. Like Teresa said, that's an event that we're hosting on August 1st in partnership with Nest and First Congregational United Church of Christ. So if you're interested, one of the things that we have today is an extra free knife sharpening pass and or a free cookie or treat for the event. So thank you. That's just a little thank you for you guys coming here to our event tonight, and we hope that you guys are able to make it to this event too. So for the presentation today, we're going to start with the student presentation. First, going over mis and disinformation tactics, what they are. Then we'll get into the bulk of the presentation, which is the climate myth busting portion. And we'll wrap up by telling all of you how you can get involved with local climate action and help the students do the same. After the presentation, we're going to do an engaging trivia, which is why you guys are all in your groups right now. And you'll be competing for a variety of different prizes. Then we'll move on to a Q&A for the student presenters, so you can ask them about the content of the presentation today, or even anything about them and what they're doing this summer. So after that, anyone, again, in person, you're invited to stick around and continue the conversations you were having with the student interns to learn more about what they're doing this summer. So without further ado, our speakers for today are from the Climate Communications team, which aims to educate the community in a variety of different ways, one of them being this event. So our speakers tonight are Rosalind Orala, who is a political science and ethical leadership major at North Central College, Phoenix Collins, who goes to Stony Brook University and is studying marine biology, Jack Ma, who is an agriculture major at U of I, and Andrew Sandoval, who is a math major at U of I. So without further ado, let's give these students a round of applause.
Thank you, Andrea. I'd like us to first begin with this quote here. A lie can travel halfway across the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. The ironic thing about this is that this quote is commonly misattributed to Mark Twain. And fortunately enough for us, this is actually just misinformation, which is just getting the facts wrong. But something that's much more dangerous that the American Psychological Association has defined is the false information, which is deliberately intended to mislead individuals. This is known as disinformation. But where does misinformation and disinformation thrive? One of the primary places where it thrives is echo chambers. As humans, we like to stick with people who feel familiar, think the same as us, and we want to make sure that the information we're receiving confirms the things that we already believe. This creates an us versus them kind of mentality, which is worse when you go on social media in the digital age. It amplifies this kind of content. Everything that you like continues to come the same way rather than showing you opposition or other opposing views, as well as AI summaries, which collect an abundance of information from various sources, not really fact-checking where it's coming from. All of this goes to say that these different ways that information spreads leads to repetition of false information multiple times, which increases the likelihood of us believing it as true. This is known as the illusionary truth effect. So misinformation and disinformation spread and thrive in echo chambers. But we also want to make sure that we're understanding where these tactics come from that gets us to engage with this kind of content to begin with in the first place. The first thing is emotional manipulation. This is essentially when you see emotionally charged content that makes you feel anger, sadness, or even fear. So when this occurs, you want to pause and ask yourself what exactly was said that made you feel this way, or what was seen that made you feel this way. I was going to show a video from the United Nations, but we're going to skip that for now and move on to the second tactic. The second tactic is polarization, which we often see today, especially during our current political climate. This is where the extreme points of views on either side are amplified, whereas the moderate and nuanced points of views found in the center are suppressed. In these kinds of instances, we want to make sure that we're being aware of the extreme points of views and find common ground in the middle. I often think of people asking hot button topics in the corners of the street to find a social media post that they can post that people want to be really active and engaged with, that sparks those emotions. In these kinds of videos, they might include language such as woke, radical, and try to position themselves as being the person that has a common sense kind of policy. They might also use language such as elitist, corrupt, or indoctrinating. As I mentioned earlier about emotional manipulation, some of these words might have made you feel strong sense of emotions already. Again, make sure you're checking where this is coming from. The third tactic is manipulating context. This can be misrepresenting a statement or taking one person's opinion and attributing it to an entire group. You need to be sure that you're checking for consistencies across sources and ensuring that something is not being taken out of context. Outside of this, climate change is something that we use a lot of scientific data for, so we have to understand how we're framing our data and our statistics as well. Psychology Today has a really good example of this, and I want to do a little thought experiment here with all of you. In this situation, you are told that you have been diagnosed with lung cancer. The doctor says in the exact same tone, either A, that you have a 70% chance of living if you have this surgery, Or B, you have a 30% chance of dying if you have this surgery. Which choice sounds better to you? Obviously, 70% chance of living makes you sound like it's a positive to take the surgery, whereas a 30% chance of dying sounds like it's a net negative. Finally, as a student journalist at North Central College, I wanted to emphasize the importance of being cognizant of biases. You need to be cognizant of your own bias, the sources, and even people that you talk to. You want to question where a source is coming from, who produced it, how they benefit from the spread of the information, whether there's multiple sources saying the same thing, and if it can be traced back to claims in primary data. On the right, you will see a media bias chart that explains where a media outlet might lie on either the right or the left. The closer you are to the top, the more fact-based reporting it is, and the less opinions there are. I am now going to hand it off to Andrew, who is going to talk about our first myth in climate change.
Thank you, Rose. My name is Andrew. And to start off with our first pair of myths for tonight, we have perhaps the two most common ones in the entire climate space, being that climate change itself isn't real, or that the changing weather patterns can be attributed to the natural shifts in Earth's temperature. We can see that this can be a pretty polarizing subject, especially as certain figures in the media use different terminology and different tactics in order to polarize people and really try to push them into sort of a us versus them mentality and try to stray away from the actual facts that surround the actual science has proven empirically the effects of human actions on the climate. We can see here that using the pre-industrial era as a baseline, we can see that there's been roughly a rise of 1.5 degrees Celsius in global average temperatures in less than 200 years. And it's completely anomalous, as we can see that since the beginning of the Common Era, we see this huge spike once humankind started burning all of these fossil fuels for energy. The emission of greenhouse gases, among other harmful practices, have made it so that all of this energy and moisture gets trapped into the atmosphere along with other harmful chemicals, especially carbon dioxide, methane, and other fluorinated gases that have coincided with the rises in temperatures. All of this has had an immense effect on humankind and wildlife, as we can see that hurricanes, droughts, wildfires, all of this is more common due to the climate crisis. The heat and moisture that gets trapped up in the atmosphere, all of that contributes to the more extreme weather events that we've been seeing, especially as their intensity and frequency grows over time. As we've seen with the wildfires that have impacted us recently, as evaporation accelerates, it makes it harder for these already vulnerable areas to fight against this wildfire. As we've seen recently, it's impacted our air quality, and it's had an immense effect on the nature and all of the wildlife that's living in the Midwest and northeastern parts of the United States. Now I'm going to pass it off to Phoenix, and we know the immense effect that climate has on human life, but we can also see that it has economic benefits.
Hi, thank you, Andrew. Hello. So I will be talking about a bit about the environment and its effects, climate change's effects on animals, as Andrew said. Okay, so starting off, we have a first myth that is common seen as with ecosystems, is that ecosystems in the environment are not financially productive, and getting rid of habitats would not have financial effects on the economy. Our own government is currently enforcing this idea. This was Trump settles challenging Biden-era oil restrictions in Alaska. So this is basically our own government enforcing the idea through the choices it continues to make that the environment is not a productive and not a financially important part of our economy. uh, so this is blatantly wrong. This is blatantly wrong for many reasons. The environment and ecosystems provide a lot for us. I bring up the wildfires that recently occurred again, you know, as a way to show that our environments are and our ecosystems are incredibly valuable in terms of air quality control, water quality control, providing us with food or biofuel. When when the environments are most healthy, right? So as long as our environments are healthy, wildfire and other climate change related events, which will continue to happen, will be further buffered by healthy environments, right? Like this. Ecotourism, right? In terms of infrastructure, ecotourism is a big one. You know, Yellowstone, right? That gets millions of dollars in revenue. They're incredibly valuable economically. I bring up wetlands again. Next slide. Wetlands are incredibly valuable for their flood mitigation. They can stop floods or stop them from being as bad for us, right? I have this chart up here. So as you can see, wetlands are pretty valuable for the terrestrial environments, right? Because of the amount that they can do for us in terms of they can take carbon out of the atmosphere, and they have a lot of animals and organisms that are really valuable to us. The y-axis over there, that's the billions of dollars per year. And the open ocean is the biggest one. I bring up the ocean. I'll bring up the ocean a bit because since I've studied it so much, but that is the most productive environment. To total it out, $44 trillion of the economic value generation, which is over half the world's GDP, is moderately or highly dependent on nature. So it's incredibly valuable. It has a lot of monetary value. It's not just because we love the environment, but because it provides for us. Next. So, sorry. Another myth that can be spread about trees and carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Like I said before, wetlands are incredibly valuable to us for how much carbon they can take out of the atmosphere. Planting trees is the most important thing to do to help climate change. Now, I love planting trees and I love mitigating deforestation as much as the next person, but we have a lot of different other environments that are worth protecting. I'm explaining what a carbon sink is, but what I was saying earlier about wetlands taking carbon out of the atmosphere, a lot of other environments do that, right? So the human activity pumps CO2 into the atmosphere, and then various other environments on Earth take it out. The ocean is the biggest carbon sink. The ocean can take a lot of carbon out of the atmosphere. It's one of the most productive environments. I mean, I had that chart up earlier, right? Where it was one of the most financially productive environments. Forests are also huge carbon sinks, but they can also be sources of carbon themselves, right? With the wildfires, that pumped a lot of carbon into the atmosphere, which is the point I bring up, like, next slide. That forests are very productive, but they are also fragile carbon sinks. There's a lot of other carbon sinks on Earth that are more productive on this front of taking carbon out of the atmosphere. Stuff like oceanic mangroves, estuary mangroves, salt marshes, those environments aren't as protected, and I believe that they deserve more of our time. There are many other ways that our environment can take carbon out of the atmosphere and be way more productive at it. I say blue carbon sinks, right? That refers more to like ocean environments, right? Like oceanic mangroves, estuarine mangroves. Sorry. But those environments are incredibly valuable for what they can do for mitigating climate change through taking more carbon out of the atmosphere. So I believe that these environments deserve more of our attention than the whole planting trees thing. It's not that I don't love trees, but there are a lot of other environments that do this stuff. Next slide. So another myth that can be spread about climate change and biodiversity is that climate change will not affect animals. they will just adapt. That's what animals do. I bring up the chameleon as an example of this. They can adapt their colors to any environment that they're in, right? That's just what all animals will do, but that is not true. So not all animals can do this. I bring up this animal as an example, another fish, sensing a common theme here. But I bring up the migration that it will have under climate change's conditions. I apologize for the graph, it's a little bit small. This was from a study from NOAA, though. I wanted to highlight how intense these migrations can be, right? So over here, it's in Oregon right now, right? As climate change, has not worsened to the level that it will, but as it moves, right, as climate change is projected to worsen over the next 100 years, it will migrate all the way to Alaska. I just wanted to show how drastic it was. It's serious. A lot of species of fish will continue to do this as the ocean's temperature continues to rise and force these fish up north. So they will continue to, a lot of species will continue to do this. And it's incredibly important that this fish is needed for this environment, right? It's vital to the other animals there, right? Other bigger animals maybe that you've heard of than a jack mackerel, right? Like a shark or a seal. A lot of them depend on small species like this that will continue to migrate due to climate change. So the animals will adapt, right? And the animals that can, not all animals can adapt in these extreme conditions, but if they do adapt, they will not adapt in our favor. Even this fish leaving this area will also cause ramifications for the local economy, right? It's not just the stress on the animal or the other animals. It's fisheries wise, monetary wise. So it's incredibly important that my main point is that animals will adapt, but not really in our favor. So another common myth with AI data centers and the economy, we'll kind of segueing away from that, is that AI data centers will give jobs and be good for the economy, as well as being used to improve our lives. Wrong. Very wrong. But in a recent US congregational testimony, Josh Levy, the president of the Data Center Coalition, cited an estimate in the Central Ohio data center that there would be 10,000 construction jobs, 2,000 data center jobs, hundreds of jobs, right? It was going to boost that economy in Central Ohio, but the truth was that there were 20 full-time jobs actually at the data center, rising to about 40 in 2047. So yeah, it wasn't really productive for that local economy, which is kind of a similar trend with a lot of other data centers. They're not as productive as they're promised to be. And of course, I could go on about the environmental effects that it has, right? I'm sure you've all heard of how much water it takes up, how much land it takes up. I don't know how much, how many of you are affected by actual data centers being nearby. Utility bills go up, right? It's a serious demand on the community. And, it's more than just the environment that's being affected by it. So, AI data centers are not as financially productive as they are promised to be. I will now pass the mic back to Rose, who will talk about jobs in the green economy.
Okay, thank you, Phoenix. We are now going to be talking about jobs in the green economy, as she said. The most common myth here is that jobs will be lost in the green economy. In fact, Bradley Blakeman wrote an opinion piece for Fox News stating that the Green New Deal will change America for the worst, killing jobs, livestock, and the airline industries. This headline is already full of a lot of emotional language. And so I kind of wanted to resort back to those tactics I mentioned to you earlier. First is emotional manipulation. It states that the Green New Deal is a jobs killer and will put millions out of work. I don't know about you, but I have to work for a living. And so this creates a sense of fear in me that I'm sure many of you felt too when I just read it to you. Another thing is that this article uses a lot of polarizing language. it positions someone as having common sense and having a sense of reality, whereas the other side has radical ideology and is involved in fictionish beliefs. And lastly, the other thing I found in this article is manipulating of context. In this quote, the word elimination is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It is trying to get you to feel like the Green New Deal and the green economy is going to eliminate industries when really it is calling for a more sustainable version of these industries. So what is the fact? The actual fact is that for every job phased out, 5 are created in its place with a net gain of 9.6 million jobs globally, at least according to the World Economic Forum. Something I really wanted to take the time to point out, though, is that as someone who comes from a working class and low-income family, making sure that there's jobs for people who have a struggle to get access to education is very important, even in the green economy. Jobs such as plumbers, wind turbine system techs, and even solar energy installation managers can get these jobs with an associate's degree, a certificate, or even a vocational training. These are projected to grow 6% or more. And then on top of this, here in Illinois, we have something known as CEJA. This is the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. It makes it much more accessible for people to get these trainings for entry-level jobs in the green economy. In fact, there are 13 hubs across Illinois, and the 2 closest to us are in Aurora and Juliet. The next myth I want to talk to you about is fossil fuels and subsidies. There is a common misconception that fossil fuel interests do not receive government subsidies, but renewable energy does. And this is just outright wrong, especially in our current administration. Under this administration, renewable energy subsidies have basically been cut, but despite this, renewable energy is still booming. The reason for this is that solar and batteries can be installed way faster than coal and gas power plants. It has also become significantly cheaper over the most recent years. In fact, coal and gas power plants have a significant costs to stay open recently, and it's actually costing them hundreds of millions of dollars to do so. The fact is that in 2024, fossil fuel interests in the United States received $2.2 billion of government subsidies. But this is not something new. As you can see from the graph, this has been happening for quite some time. I will now be passing the mic back on to Jack, who will be telling you in depth about the solar transformation and why solar energy is becoming more cheaper and more accessible.
Hi, my name is Jack Ma, and I am presenting the transformations in solar technology. The core myth behind most of the opposition to solar energy is right here, believing that solar panels are too inefficient to generate meaningful amounts of electricity. And there are plenty of reasons why someone might believe in this. Maybe they remember outdated efficiency numbers or price figures from the 80s or 90s. Maybe they picture a solar panel buried under snow, or they imagine the sun setting at night. Or maybe they've consumed decades of disinformation on renewable energy. It's understandable why someone might believe it. The fact is, solar keeps getting more and more cheaper. If you look to the graph, you could see that the steady rise in research cell efficiency from 1975 to 2010. Now, obviously, the best record-breaking cells are not the same as commercial panels, but the trend is the same. Solar cells are continuing to get more efficient and ultimately more price-effective. In fact, today's solar energy is 99.9% cheaper if you grab the panels that it costs and then you divide it by the electrical output per watt. And you can see there's 2 reasons that this price drop is happening. First is we're getting more output from each panel, given the greater efficiency, and we have mass manufacturing, lowering the cost of production. Now, we could push these silicon cells past 28% in the laboratory, but that's near its theoretical limit of 29%. However,
if you look at this chart right here, you don't need to understand it, but there's this new category called hybrid tandems in Go that's been circled. This is the research cell efficiencies updated for 2026. And what they've done in the last decade is these researchers, they figured out how to layer relatively cheap perovskite on top of silicone. And by doing this, they're able to capture the blue-green light that silicone has been missing. And by adding this perovskite, now they have a theoretical limit of 44% solar capture, which is much greater than the 29% that was theoretically possible with silicone alone. And currently, we're actually going through a little bit of a competition. If you look right here, Hawon Qcell, a German-Korean partnership, is racing against its Chinese competitors for tandem commercialization by 2029. If you look at the timeline, you can see in 2023, they invested $100 million into the R&D line to expand it. In 2025, their cells passed international stress tests for stability. And last month, on June 29th, they actually got an agreement with the Korean Energy Ministry to lead a 9-institute consortium to help speed up this commercialization. Now we have governments, we have the money, and with all this backing, and surely if you follow these trends, it will become undeniable that solar energy is becoming more efficient and more price effective. And here's a myth that's quite reasonable actually, when you see it. Solar can't work because it snows during the winter. And you know, just think about that. Perhaps if the snow falls on the panel and it's covered in snow, it can't absorb any electricity or any light. And that's a reasonable assumption. But the fact is, according to the North Alberta Institute of Technology, snowfall on photocells only costs output roughly 3%, not the 20% drain that has been traditionally estimated. This is because the cold weather actually allows the electrons to move more freely, which reduces the resistance, which prevents overheating, and is ultimately boosting solar efficiency. And if any of you guys love winter sports, you know how blinding and reflective snow can be. Solar needs light, not heat. Admittedly, this study, they're using commercial arrays with proper snow shedding. If you look to the image on the right, you can see when snow simply falls off or melts off the panels. However, I understand that with residential panels, they could simply get blocked by snow. However, with intentional design to combat snow, they suffer significantly less output cost. And if you're still concerned about the winter, you can ask me about complementary technologies such as heat pumps and different things that will help with reducing electrical use. And now moving on, solar can't work because the sun doesn't always shine. You could run a factory, you could run a gas station, any of these plants 24/7, but solar panels, they only work when the sun's out. However, we don't need to be generating 24/7. In fact, solar actually generates a surplus of energy. If you look to right here, you can see German officials recorded 573 hours of negative wholesale prices. They were actually paying people to take the energy off of them. And if you look at the Californian energy grid, you can see that's dominated by solar during the daylight hours. And if you see the little purple there, those are solar charged batteries that are kicking in during the evening. Even though they have batteries, they still resort to solar curtailment. The Californian grid operator, they purposely restrict operations, resulting in 3.4 million megawatts in 2024 that they were, including wind, that they weren't able to save. However, we don't need to be wasting this surplus because recent advances in engineering technology means that we're able to capture it in batteries. If you look right here, you can see since 2010, there's been a 93% drop in the price of batteries. And with recent engineering advancements, they're more efficient and cheaper. Most people, they accept how advanced that AI is, how advanced these hardware GPUs are, but they don't understand that similar advances are happening to photovoltaic cells and batteries. That similar research and similar minds are working hard to make sure that they're better. In fact, Illinois, our home state, is actually a leader in research and engineering these materials. We have Argonne National Laboratory that is funded federally with the Department of Energy. And we also have the University of Illinois Chicago, a tier 1 research institute. We have the Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which is ranked for 3rd for materials engineering. And we even have the University of Northwestern, which places 2nd. So beyond locally in Illinois, across the nation, as well as across the world, we have so many people interested in making better batteries and better photocells. And with all this brain power, we clearly have the ability to engineer better ones. And now I'm going on to a myth that's flat out wrong, that solar is bad for the environment. And of course, mining will cause a certain amount of ecological harm, but there's 2 questions we must ask ourselves. What is the scale of this ecological harm that we're causing compared to the alternative? And what are those raw materials being used for? If you look right here, you could see, well, let me go into another thing. So many things that we construct are way worse for the environment. Imagine the data centers, imagine all the concrete we pour on different projects that are just terrible for the local environment. And people who are still pushing this stuff are frankly misinformed or being disingenuous, to be frank with you. Because fossil fuel mining, drilling, and transportation causes significantly more risk than solar energy. If you look with the International Energy Agency, a truly respected organization worldwide, they predict in 2040, we're going to require 28 million tons of raw material for renewable energy, okay? But in 2020, they recorded 15 billion tons, for fossil fuel extraction. The difference is staggering, million versus billion. The hypocrisy is absurd. And do you remember Deepwater Horizon in 2010? Well, for 87 days, the oil well gushed crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico, 4.9 million barrels of crude oil. And not only does this hurt Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, but this continues to happen in smaller instances across the US. According to the Bureau of Transportation, we still have thousands of incidences every year. With each incident, we are harming the local ecosystem, which is causing harm for commercial fisheries, as well as for recreational fishers. And if you wanted to take another look, I want to present you one of my last slides. And this is, I want to say that solar, it's truly going through a revolution. If you look right here on the very top, you can see the University of Illinois built its first agrivoltaic array this fall, well, last fall, 2025. And then if you look below, you can see the reversal of desertification. They are building solar panels in the middle of a desert. And from this research paper from 2018 to 2025, they recorded a reversal of desertification and the return of greenery and the retainment of moisture that's been added to the environment from rainfall. And it's even endorsed by the Royal Geographical Society Institute of British Geographers. They understand that this is truly happening. And I'm going to go into a quick thought experiment. Would you rather a water draining, buzzing data center in your backyards, or would you rather have a silent array? Sorry for leading the question, but right here, CARES proposed a data center to be built in Naperville with an 8-foot tall steel palisade and diesel generators. They were going to expand it to 16 diesel generators within a football field distance from residential areas, including a playground where children play. And when this happened and when they proposed it, the people of Naperville, they were in uproar. The entire city council room was packed with people voicing their dissent. Well, this is it from me. I don't have much more to say. I've been rambling a little bit. I'd love to pass it down to my next speaker, Rose.
Thank you, Jack, for all that wonderful information. So we did a lot of climate myth busting for you guys here, and it was a lot of information that we threw at you. But we want to really encourage you to do your own research on climate change because being informed is very important. As I had mentioned earlier, we will be sharing these slides with you, and we have provided additional sources in addition to all the sources we've used in this presentation on this slide for you to learn more about. But in addition to this, it's not just enough to be informed. And it's not just enough to use a reusable water bottle or even to take public transportation. We need to realize that climate change is a systemic issue and that we need to all come together, such as how we have done in this room, to come learn as a community, to move forward and take political action to make not just Naperville and not just Illinois, but our whole entire nation a more sustainable place. I'm going to now hand it off to Anushka, who's going to talk to you about District 204 and everything that you guys have been doing to promote a carbon action plan.
Done. Like. Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Anushka Sampath Kumar, and I'm a rising senior at Mattia Valley High School, and I'm part of the local climate action school focused group. So this summer, we've been working on two main projects, one of which is the advocating for a climate action plan in District 204, and the other one being working to get the climate literacy seal passed as a bill in Illinois. So for some context on the District 204 Carbon Action Plan, District 203 had a carbon action plan made a couple of years ago that was just put in place last year, which is very exciting, but the problem is District 204 still does not have one. And for context, for those of you who don't know what a carbon action plan is, it's a framework used by businesses or schools to reduce their carbon emissions. So basically what we want for District 204 is, first of all, we want carbon emission reduction to be written down as one of the 4 priority goals listed in 204's strategic plan. And the strategic plan's priority goals are the main goals that the school dedicates funding and time and attention towards. So this is definitely what we want. And then once that's done, we want to turn this goal into a carbon action plan. And so how you can help us out with this is there's this QR code right here that'll take you to a Sign Up Genius, and on the side, we've also listed all the school board meeting dates. So those are the dates and the times, the address, and all the information you would possibly need is in the Sign Up Genius. So if you could scan that, show up to any meetings, we would greatly appreciate it because we will have people speaking on our behalf at these meetings, and if possible, wear green. So now on to our next project, which is the Climate Literacy Seal. So first of all, what is the Climate Literacy Seal? This is a seal that's very similar to the seal of biliteracy, it's just not about a language. So basically, it's a stamp that will appear on your diploma. And in order to earn this seal, instead of taking a test, you must pass 2 environmental science related classes, which are picked by your school district and based on what your school district has to offer and what classes they have. And you must complete an individual approved project, which can be a variety of different things. So some more information about this seal is that this was passed as a bill in Colorado and as a policy in Maine. And we are currently also working with another organization, which is a nonprofit based in Illinois called It's Our Future. That's their logo right over there in the corner. And if you want to hear more about the Climate Literacy Seal, or if you're interested in helping out, come visit our table over there and we would be happy to tell you all about it.
This summer, Edward and I, Rohan, are a few of many interns who have been part of the local climate action Naperville focus team. Throughout the internship, we researched Naperville's contract with the Illinois Municipal Electric Agency, also known as the IMEA, and explored the idea of creating a climate action and resiliency plan, otherwise known as a CARP, for our city. We also had the opportunity to meet with one of Naperville's council members to discuss our ideas. Tomorrow, some of our members plan to speak during the city council meeting to share our research and recommendations. We encourage anyone who can come to the meeting.
One of the first things we discovered. One of the first things we discovered is that Naperville does not currently have a climate action and resilience plan, making one of the few major cities in Illinois without one. But what is a CARP? What is a CARP? A CARP is a long-term plan that outlines how a city will reduce its environmental impact while preparing for challenges such as climate change. We believe that Naperville should create a CARP so that the city has a clear path towards becoming more sustainable and resilient, and thus we would see actual results occurring in our city.
We also researched Naperville's current energy provider, the IMEA. Approximately 80% of IMEA's electricity is generated from coal power plants, making it a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. As an alternative, we explored cleaner energy providers such as Constellation and NextEra. We also looked into virtual power plants. Which manage devices such as smart thermostats, heat pumps, home batteries, and electric vehicles to help balance electricity demand. These devices can reduce energy use or release stored energy during times of high demand, reducing stress on the electric grid and supporting renewable energy sources like solar power. Naperville can begin planning for managing, generating, and storing electricity locally now, creating a more resilient community. Some of these initiatives don't even need to wait until the end of the IMEA contract in 2035.
After conducting some research, we scheduled a meeting with Councilwoman Mary Gibson to receive feedback on our ideas. We presented our findings on the situation with the IMEA contract and a potential CARP for Naperville. She told us that many of our ideas were realistic and encourages us to continue sharing them. She suggested meeting with our mayor and other council members before the city council meeting, which will aid in our approach to seeking alternatives to the IMEA and ensuring that Naperville creates a CARP. In the end, we believe that Naperville has the opportunity to build a cleaner and more sustainable future. While ending the IMEA contract cannot happen immediately, we can begin preparing for the future now. Creating a CARP would give the city a clear path towards reducing emissions and preparing for future challenges. If we want to make a lasting positive difference, the best time is to start now. To show our elected leaders that you support a cleaner energy future for Naperville, we invite you to join us at the city council meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. and be sure to wear red. And also, please be sure to sign our petition as well. And we have the QR code up on the screen. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Josh and I go to Nico Valley High School. So this summer, okay, yeah, we're going to talk about batteries. And so this summer, our team originally planned to create a proposal to Edward Hospital to propose a backup battery system. And we started by researching the most reliable batteries and the different pros and cons and looked into different similar projects that we could potentially use as references. However, we found a large issue while researching, not with the batteries themselves, but with the city of Naperville. The Naperville electricity rate system is very flawed as it disincentivizes the use of renewable energy for commercial entities, which leads Naperville to miss out on the many major financial benefits of sustainable energy. While Naperville may be stuck using coal electricity from the IMEA contract until 2035, the city does have the power to change the rate structure today and help promote renewable sources of technology such as solar, batteries, LED lights, and insulation. And time of use rates are beneficial to shift electricity demand times to times of the day when electricity is cheap and when it is less carbon emitting. And currently, Naperville uses peaker factories, which basically are only turned on during the peak electricity times of the day. And these are highly carbon emitting. And so, yeah, Naperville's electricity rate structure should encourage a time of use rate. And currently, now we're working on a proposal for a hybrid solar system at Mattia Valley High School. And basically, it implements the use of solar panels and batteries together. And due to the ComEd rate of Aurora, this would allow the district to save money that could be put towards teaching students. That could be used towards helping the students of Mattia, could be used aligned with the green initiatives of District 204 and for long-term savings in the future. And yeah, as you can see, these renewable energy sources have many major benefits, including reduced emissions, increased energy efficiency, and more affordability. So we ask you for your consideration in implementing solar and battery systems in your everyday lives, homes, and businesses. And also to show your support, in addition, as one of the groups said earlier, it was for District 204. Please show your support at the school board meeting as we work to promote school sustainability. And now Sejal will talk a little bit about the Power Act.
Hi everyone, I'm Sejal. And I go to Mattia Valley High School. I'm going to be a junior next year. And I'm part of the local climate action team C&D. One of our projects was the battery system that Joshua just talked about. And then our other project was gaining grassroots support for the Power Act. So we started the summer off by having 3 different bills that we could lobby for, which were the Power Act, Make Polluters Pay, and the Plug-in Solar Bill. We knew a little bit about the Plug-in Solar Bill and Make Polluters Pay beforehand, but really did not know much about the Power Act at all. After we started researching it, however, we realized that it addressed a growing problem that has already impacted Illinois and will only continue to get worse as time goes on. Data centers provide communities next to nothing once they're built. Their electricity use drives up our bills. Their carbon emissions heavily impact our environment, and they earn millions while doing it. That's why the Power Act was created. It stands for protecting our water, energy, and ratepayers. Essentially, the bill would require data centers to obtain water permits, conduct publicly available environment assessments, and contribute to a public fund that would cause them to pay for their own electricity and help their communities pay for their energy bills. Data centers will continue to be built, and the Power Act will actively minimize their effects. So this summer, our team has been working to get grassroots support, as I said, and we started our endeavor by conducting research on the bill itself first. Then we gathered notes, found a fact sheet, and made note of the officials that had already co-sponsored this bill during the last season. Next, we created a petition and flyer, as you can see, and we presented that to all of the Accelerated Climate Solutions interns. We ended up getting 43 signatures, and then we drafted and redrafted emails. And finally, using the signatures, we contacted 2 officials in order to have a meeting during which we could speak more on the Power Act with them and hopefully also gain their support. In the future, we'd love to widen our impact and speak to more people and more officials. But for now, I ask the audience to support us by signing our petition, it's right there, or even contacting your own representatives and asking them to support this bill. It really is a collective effort. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We're very happy to start our myth busting trivia for tonight. Just to start off with a few rules, we have 6 questions with a variety of answer options. You're going to have 2 minutes to discuss, choose, and submit your response. So your little groups of the chairs is going to be your groups. Each student with the clipboard is going to help with the answers, and points are going to be awarded for accuracy. For all of our virtual participants, we are going to be having you guys go into breakout rooms, and your question will be put into breakout room chats so that you guys don't have to memorize them off the top of our head. We do have people helping you guys out to facilitate that online. One person from the breakout room does need to enter the main chat in order to have your answer count. Now for all of our in-person participants, we're very excited. We want to get you guys moving around a little bit, talking with your neighbors. You're going to check the back.
There were some people
Yeah.
that came late, so they need to get in their groups. So
Yeah. If you did come in late, we're going to have all of our students hold up your sign so you can get into your group. Yeah, it's on the back of your flyer that you received upon entry.
And not everyone knows that it's on the back.
So if you see the flyer upon entry, and on the back, it should say a number, it's the related teacher flyer. And the students are holding up a clipboard with the number that should correspond to the one on the back. We're gonna give you guys a couple minutes to get people virtually situated.
And then in the meantime, while you're moving around, I also invite you to speak with people next to you. Well, again, meet the people virtually situated. We will begin in about 1 to 2 minutes.
She's actually not part of our group. She doesn't get to do trivia.
Oh, here.
Over there to submit your answers for your points to count. Now for our prizes, we have these Accelerate Climate Solutions notebooks. We also have vouchers for our upcoming event, Remake the Future, for an extra free night sharpening, as well as free baked goods. We can see the little notebooks over here. It's going to be Saturday, August 1st at First Congregational Church. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then we do have repair and upcycling extravaganza. It's a lot of fun. You guys should scan the QR code up here or look at your flyers if you're interested. And with that being said, let's get started. Now, with our first question of the night, rank the following based on what causes the most annual U.S. bird deaths. From 1 being the most, 5 to the least. You have 2 minutes. Okay. I'll try some. Submit our answers. Bring them over here. Answers are in. Let's go over to the answer slide. Now, if you ranked wind turbines all the way at the bottom, followed by electrical wires, and then vehicles, building glass, and cats, then you got it. Everyone. So, everyone. So, if you ranked wind turbines all the way at the bottom, you got it right. The point of this question was to show that although in the renewable energy space, the potential threat for wind turbines to local wildlife is a common talking point. The threats that come from other sources are much more dangerous to potential bird populations. And there are also a lot of common solutions that can be taken in order to prevent any wildlife impacts that can come from wind production, like painting one turbine a different color so that winds don't crash, so that birds don't crash into them, or just removing the wind turbines out of their migratory patterns in order to prevent any risk of collision. Now to move on to the next question. Which method of energy production produces the most power per acre every year? Is it wind, solar, corn for ethanol, or oil fields? You have 2 minutes starting now. Time is up, everyone. If you haven't already, submit your answers now. Now for the answer, we actually have solar as the most energy efficient per acre. And that's actually because of how close you can space out the solar panels. Wind would be a lot higher if it were just the space that the wind turbine itself takes up. But you have to space them out a little bit just to increase the efficiency. And another really neat thing with solar is that you can benefit from agrivoltaics, taking advantage of all of the energy benefits that you can get from the solar panels, while also using that land for other sorts of agriculture or grazing or what will you. And it's actually pretty shocking how much more efficient it is than corn being used for ethanol and oil as well, because you lose a lot of heat when you refine it and you have to burn it in order to actually get it onto the grid. So a lot of these more polluting sources of energy, they aren't as efficient because of the energy dissipation. Now I'm going to pass it on to Addison with her next question being about vehicles and their lifetime emissions.
All right, so we have to rank the following vehicles from lowest to highest. 1 will be the lowest and 3 will be the highest greenhouse gas emissions. So we have the, all right, we have the Ford F-150 Lightning, which is an electric truck, the Toyota Tacoma Hybrid, and the Mitsubishi Mirage, which takes gas. So you'll have 2 minutes to answer. So if you haven't turned in your slips already, turn them in at the table before we start explaining the question. Has everyone got them in? All right, so at number 1 with the least emissions is actually the Mitsubishi Mirage, followed by the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Toyota Tacoma Hybrid. Before we break this down, if you could quiet, I know it's surprising, but if you could quiet down so we can explain it. So let's break down the graph first. So on the y-axis, we have the total greenhouse gas emissions, and on the x-axis, we have total vehicle cost. So you can see that overall, electric being in yellow, it has the lowest greenhouse gas emissions, followed by the plug-in hybrid in red, the hybrid in pink, and the internal combustion engine. And here you can see 1 is the emissions of the Mitsubishi Mirage, 2 over here is the Ford F-150 Lightning, and 3 is the Toyota Tacoma. So you can see that they're overall more expensive vehicles, and it takes a lot more greenhouse gases to manufacture them as they're so much larger, and also being larger vehicles, they take a lot more energy to run. So when you factor in the overall production emissions and how much energy it takes to run, that's why the Mitsubishi Mirage, being a smaller car, has lower emissions. All right, you'll have 2 minutes to answer this question. It's the what's the number 1 thing you always recycle curbside? Seconds left. If you could start finalizing your answers and bringing. If you could all quiet down, please. The answer is aluminum cans. So aluminum cans are infinitely recyclable, and they can be recycled for 5% of the total energy to make the product from new. And a bonus fact is you never want to put aluminum cans or anything in a plastic bag before you put them in your recycling bin, as flexible plastics such as garbage bags are not recyclable. Our next question is how many quarter-pound hamburgers does it take to offset a one-way economy flight from New York to London? Answer is 350 burgers. We will accept within 50 either way as an acceptable answer. So if we want to break down where we got this number, there's about 2.6 kilograms of CO2 emitted per burger, and it takes 900 kilograms of CO2 emitted per flight. So you take 900 kilograms of CO2 emitted and divide it by 2.6, you get 350 hamburgers. This might seem like a surprisingly low number, but when you break it down, here's why. So raising cattle takes a lot of land, which requires a lot of deforestation. And another factor that really plays into CO2 emissions of cows is that their burps produce methane, which is an extremely potent greenhouse gas. So as you can see from this graphic, cattle farming is more than double any other type of food production.
They feed them algae so they don't burp methane.
Interesting. All right, so we have our final question. What's the number one thing an individual can do to help fight climate change? So if you haven't already, please bring your papers to the front. All right. So a lot of you might have said changing your personal decisions. Let's say eating less meat, walking more places, or adding solar panels to your house. And you're not wrong. These are a lot of great ways to benefit the climate movement. However, the projected impact of changing your individual decisions is only 1/10 of possible emission reductions. In fact, the most important thing you can do to help climate change is to talk about it. And a great quote from Bill McKibben, who is widely renowned as the founder of the modern climate movement, is the most important thing an individual can do is be a little less of an individual. Join together with others in movements large enough to make change. Another impactful quote is from Katharine Hayhoe, an award-winning author and climate scientist. The most important thing you can do to fight climate change, talk about it. And you might be wondering, what does talking actually do? Well, talking with those around you will create cultural and political shifts that will actually inspire political leaders to make a change. A lot of you might be wondering how you can get started in helping the climate movement. A great resource is SHIFT, the Super High Impact Initiative for Fixing Tomorrow. They have a ton of resources, like a climate quiz where you can try and find a place to start and find your place in the climate movement. So we're wrapping up, so we will be tallying up the points and then we'll come back for the winner.
Yeah. Before you announce the winners. All right, while the students are wrapping up and tallying the winners, I just wanted to thank them all again. I think they did a fabulous job. Incredibly well informed. And I also wanted to thank the elected officials who came out tonight. We had our state senator, Laura Ellman, Councilmember Ian Holzhauer. They had to leave. And from our park districts, Aish Balakrishna, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you all so much for caring about these issues and supporting our youth. And with that, I will pass it back and hopefully we have some winners to announce.
So the winner of tonight's trivia is Group 8. So give a round of applause to them. You can come to the front to collect your prizes. And here we go. Come on up. Don't be shy, guys. Okay, and while they're getting all of their prizes, we did promise you guys a Q&A session. So this is the perfect opportunity for you guys to ask any questions regarding, our presentation, our trivia, or anything about us individual interns in general that you guys want to know. So would anyone like to start?
I think it was Phoenix. It was you. You were talking about the sinks, but most of the things were blue, and it talked about water, and we don't have, well, we're blessed by the Great Lakes, but you were talking mangroves and all that. What can people do here with water to help?
People do here. Good question. That is something I should know more about. But you are right. We are blessed with the Great Lakes over here. I think that was something that we're really grateful to have, right? I'm grateful to have it. I love going to the shed, right? Just seeing all the life that we can have in the lakes and the ocean. But I think something you can do here is supporting any water quality treatment plant over here, right? Or any like water quality, or even like water quality regulation of that kind of thing, right? Since we have wetlands here, we have the Great Lakes here. So I should be speaking. Sorry. So yeah, we do have the Great Lakes. I think something that you can do here I think I'm going to emphasize wetlands a lot. Something you do here for wetlands is, advocate for protections of wetlands. They're really important environments here, and they're not valued as much as they should be. So value wetlands, advocate for wetland protection is something that, like, locally you can do. So.
For the person who talked about Edwards Hospital and the battery, I can't remember who that was. Yeah, okay. I was not clear on why that project didn't go forward. So you just switched to talking about, time of day usage. Was it that the economics didn't work out? Was it a coding, building code problem? Was it that the battery was too expensive? Was it that it took too long for the payback? Why did they say no? And did they actually say no?
Well, we never actually sent the proposal because we discussed with a professional and essentially said like it wouldn't be as beneficial in Naperville due to the electricity rate, which is basically in Naperville, they decide the rates based off of the peak at the time of day. So like the highest electricity demand of the day. And that's why we shifted over to the Latia Valley proposal, because in Aurora, they use ComEd, and basically it's not based off of the highest peak of the day, and it's like shifted out and would be more beneficial to the school.
So Edwards is charged for the peak. There is a
Yes.
surcharge for it. Yeah.
Maybe we could talk about that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
It's very complicated and a lot of, much detail.
Does anybody else have questions?
Yes, please.
Oh, to any of us. I'm loud.
Okay. All right.
It's not a question for anyone specific, so whoever would like to answer, it's very exciting to come here and see how active the youth is with climate action. And so I just kind of wanted to ask, obviously a lot of the folks in this room, they're very passionate about climate action. How do your classmates and fellow peers seem to interact with you guys on climate conversations? Are they pretty open to it, or do you see a lot of the misinformation, disinformation affecting their beliefs on climate action?
As someone who spent a lot of time at the business school, I think it's something that I've thought a lot about. I think the misinformation, disinformation can spread, but there's a lot of classes, especially I go to North Central, which is just down the street. And we teach a lot of like environmental economics and environmental management classes. So students who take those classes, I think definitely have a greater understanding and are more open to talking about climate change. Whereas some students who may have not might struggle a little bit more to like jump on the bandwagon essentially. But I think that being able to, for example, like myself and everyone else who is presenting and all the other youth in this group, being able to use our own voices to communicate with our peers is definitely helping, because if they see us, they are going to start asking more questions. I don't know if anyone else wants to elaborate.
Something that I see a lot with some of my peers, marine biology, right? So I'm out in New York, but I think I see sometimes some gloom and doom about climate, like, or thinking that, oh, wow, like the climate is, really going downwards. I can't believe, like, oh no. But I think there's also a lot of hope. And I think having hope really like helps out continuing to further the climate change movement. I think not being like so gloom and doom about it is really important. And I think it sometimes being so down on the environment can bring down the message. So I guess something I'd like to say to everyone is, the gloom and doom is like, it brings down the movement. I think that being hopeful about it is the best part. So yes.
Change is a solvable, serious problem. And yes, we need to really go for the solvable, because you're right. People just say, "Oh, let's give up." No, it's solvable. You guys need to be able to be as old as I am.
Yes, of course. We'll get you first, and then we'll head over to you.
So what are you most optimistic about?
I'd say that throughout the summer, I've looking at my work and especially Jack's work, I'll give him a lot of props. With all of the research and all of the stuff that he's looked at regarding solar energy and renewable energy as a whole, I think that that's a pivotal part in really moving the climate movement forward, getting away from fossil fuels and kind of moving towards a source of energy that can really push us forward for a long time.
My question is associated with disinformation. So perhaps currently Naperville is struggling, trying to decide whether they're more interested in having affordable energy or renewable energy, right? And in my view, it looks like actually the cards are both, on one side, that you can have affordable renewable energy, right? However, there's organizations that are fostering the opinion that there is no crossover. What do you do to combat disinformation on those lines, that renewable energy is not affordable?
I think first is like all the good information that Jack gave us is really important. All of you guys now have that in your like think tanks, right? You can share that with your neighbors. But also I know that some people do send out like newsletters. I think you're referring to a particular group that likes to go to city council quite often to promote that renewable energy isn't actually affordable. As you said, that's not true. And as I gave with all the tactics, even if you were to subscribe to their newsletter, you can identify all the things that I said in their newsletter. And outside of that, I think really just making sure you're combating it with information as well. The more facts that you pull from, it's just the more undeniable it is. And I think the most interesting part about it is that even when it becomes cheaper, some people are just adverse to change. They don't want to change because they feel like it's inconvenient to make that cost switch. But to really just encourage them to realize that in the end, it's actually going to save us money and make it more affordable for everyone.
I think we have one last question and then we probably need to wrap up.
Okay, I'm an EV driver and I have a question because that question about the energy usage of those cars was largely based on the size of the vehicle. If you had vehicles of the same size and one was running on gas and one was an EV, would the EV use less energy? Given that you told us that in the state of Illinois, most electricity comes from coal. So I'm just curious about that. I know petroleum has to be shipped, et cetera. So it's a complicated question, I think.
Well, I'd like to answer that by saying the coal issue is a more of a local one on a Naperville scale, but also when it comes to emissions and lifetime emissions in vehicles, we do have various factors that play into it, and the vast majority of EVs, their lifetime emissions hit a break-even point to where they're saving out on emissions, and their lifetime emissions are less than gas vehicles after only 20 or 40,000 miles, anywhere in that range. But the point of that question really is to highlight that there are different factors that can contribute to lifetime emissions, such as the size and other factors like that.